All right. Welcome everyone. Britta, hello
Hello.
from across the other side of the world here today.
Yeah, this is really fun, Anthony. I think it was a brilliant idea when we came across each other's profiles on LinkedIn and we were like, "Hey, we are on the same line of thinking. We are excited to collaborate together. So let's go live on LinkedIn." So it's fun. Yeah, I'm over in Bologna, Italy, and you're where are you located again in
So
Tennessee?
I'm just south of Memphis, Tennessee, in North Mississippi.
Okay,
And
yeah, but
one of
we made this work.
absolutely, yeah. Usually when I get on any Zoom call or live stream, one of the first questions is, "What part of the South are you from?" Because the accent is pretty thick, comes across pretty thick. For those of you who are logging on, please take a second and drop a comment. Tell us where you are from, please. I'm going to turn that chat on over here somewhere. There we go. All right, drop a comment. Let us know where you're from. As Britta mentioned, this may be a global audience, which will be the first time I can ever say I've had a global LinkedIn live stream. I have to tell my parents about that tonight if that's the case. But
Yeah, I know. I had invited some people from Italy for sure, and then all across Europe. So it would be super fun to see if you're located in Europe and you're logging on this evening, maybe it's like after dinner or you're about to have dinner, I don't know. Or if you're located in the US or elsewhere as well. Let us know where you are tuning in from today.
awesome, awesome. So there was also another question I think that we wanted to kind of kick things off with, right?
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead. I'll tee it up. You go ahead and ask the question. Let me find it
Yeah,
here.
so I mean, Anthony and I are here today to really talk about how you can move beyond the company page, which feels really comfortable when it comes to sharing on LinkedIn, especially if you're an employee and there is the marketing team that's creating content and you know that it's approved. It feels much safer just to repost something that's already been put out on the company page. But we're really curious, are there people who are tuning in right now, who are listening and are actively sharing on LinkedIn? Are you comfortable? Are you like, yes, I have this, I share regularly? And you'd be like, I feel like I'm at a 10 when it comes to sharing on my own LinkedIn profile under my own name, writing my own original unique content. Or are there people here today who feel more like they are a one? They're like on the lower side of the scale. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. Maybe there's just self doubt. Maybe even there's some micromanagement or just fear that goes on. And so they're not actively sharing on their LinkedIn profile. Maybe you want to. So if you kind of want to use that scale of one, you're not comfortable at all and you rarely ever share, you've never shared, or you only repost company content, or if you were more at a 10 and you are like loving the platform, leveraging your network, and have really tapped into what can happen in this space when you do share.
Yeah, and I will be the first to admit I've been doing this for years. This is my business, but there are days where I feel like maybe I'm a three or four, a three or four, because it's never always just a 10, for sure. And I know a lot of people have a lot of challenges and struggles when it comes to posting content. We'll break down some of those challenges today, talk about how we can overcome that. But while folks are coming on, I mean, we can kick it off here. And Britta, do you want to just kind of give an overview of like what is a brand ambassador program as it pertains to LinkedIn, and like why is it so important?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing real quick because, like you said sometimes that you feel like you're a three out of four. I'm always really transparent, and I tell everyone I helped other people write for LinkedIn for 18 months before I wrote on my own profile. So when we're talking about, we're not just standing up here being like, it's really easy, everyone do it. Like, we're saying that, but we've also been through that journey of like, this is hard. We have to overcome the fear. Like we've been through that. And sometimes too, I'm like, okay, do I really want to hit publish today? Okay. So just so you know, like we are with you. We don't think we're better than you. We're not like above anyone here. It's just like we have gone through that journey. We want to help other people go through that journey and streamline it. Okay. So just really upfront on my side as well. So to answer the question and to kind of kick this off, what is a brand ambassador and why is it so important, especially when it comes to LinkedIn? Brand ambassadors are employees internally who are using their own LinkedIn profile to talk about the experience that they're having within their organization or company. So that can be sharing events that are happening within the organization. Maybe they went to a fair or some other thing, networking event, and they represented the company. Or it could be sharing their own knowledge on a specific topic, could be niche down, industry specific, or it could even be something personal about themselves. But everything they are sharing essentially represents the culture and values and overall mission of their employer. And so you are using real people, unique experiences from their own perspective, and they are supporting the organization and their goals that they have in a very visible, transparent, authentic way. And I would say, and Anthony, tell me if you agree, the reason this is so important is that today online, like, you can literally say anything. Like, you can build out that career page and you can use all the buzzwords and you can like essentially paint a picture, but then the reality is very different. And so having brand ambassadors really opens up the door for people to connect with these individuals one-on-one and have a real conversation and say, okay, does this align? Do you align? Does your experience align with what I'm seeing on the career website, on the company page, or anywhere else online?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would agree with that or if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And the truth is, in my opinion, like, there's two types of companies on LinkedIn. The first type is the one who still looks at LinkedIn like the job posting board that it was 15 years ago, and their strategy is just to post content to the company page, right? And in my opinion, those are going to be the companies that fail on LinkedIn in the years ahead. The second type of company treats LinkedIn for what it has become today, which is a true social networking site, a professional social networking site. And they're taking advantage of the company page, but just as importantly, if not more importantly, the voices of their employees. Because, kind of to your point, people connect with people much more authentically, in a much more genuine way than they do with a company logo, right? Uh, uh, Engagement from company posts on LinkedIn today is at an all-time low, whereas engagement on individual profiles is at an all-time high. So just understanding that concept, that people connect with people, and the fact that, if you have any, a decent sized company, in many cases, your employees have more people combined in their individual networks than your own company page. Case in point, I was talking with a company about a year ago. They told me they had like 14,000 followers to their company page, which was great, right? But I went in and I looked at all 30 employees, their individual profiles, and I added up the total number of connections, and they had over 123,000 combined connections among those 30 employees. So the company thought their reach on LinkedIn was the 14,000 or however many company page followers. It was actually exponentially larger at 123,000. So that's just one of one of the ways that companies need to look at this, and understand the gold mine that is there if you empower and train and support your people in building their personal brands on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's so true. I think the actual stat right now too for that is company page content only fills 3% of a user's feed, and personal profile content like fills 33 or like 35%. Anyways, it's pretty much a third of what you see in the feed. And you would, like, if you open up your LinkedIn profile, that's what, like, you will notice that yourself. But then I think it's also really important for organizations to be mindful, especially when it does come to their marketing teams, of what are users' habits when it comes to social media. Like, and who do, like, the very first thing to think of is yourself. Like, who do you follow? Like, I personally don't follow a lot of company pages, oftentimes because it's not really relevant. And I think that's a huge question that can come up when it talks about creating content as an employee. And if you're going to initiate a brand ambassador program, how do you create content that's relevant? Because if I don't see myself in what you're putting out there, or if I can't connect to it, I will literally just scroll over it and I won't even stop and read it. So it's almost like you're losing two times because you're only getting pushed out 3% into the feed. And then the people who are that 3% probably is not even reading it. And so it's like, all right, you've got your people. LinkedIn is free. Having a profile is free. If you invest in supporting them and being able to share authentically, then like you said, you're going to go from, what is it, 14,000 to like 100,000, and
Yeah.
it's not going to cost you very much. You're not going to be paying in paid ads or sponsored content.
Yeah, exactly. So many companies can generate, they have the potential to generate hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on an annual basis with zero ad spend if they take advantage of, building programs like this. And if you were to try to generate millions of impressions on your company page, you would be spending six figures, multiple six figures in LinkedIn ads to achieve that. So you can do this with a zero ad spend if you have the strategy, if you have the right plan in place.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I've seen though is, and this is pretty much across the board, there's still only a very small percentage of LinkedIn users globally who post original content on a regular basis. And I've seen stats anywhere from like 1 to 3%. It's definitely somewhere, I think, in that range. And there's just a lot of barriers and roadblocks that keep people on the sidelines. And I thought we might talk about a couple of those because I think we need to break those down and address them before we can say, okay, here's how you build a program and get people posting content. And I'll ask you, do you feel like imposter syndrome is like one of the leading causes of people not posting their own content?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question, and it's something to be really mindful of. I definitely think imposter syndrome is part of it, but that only comes after you have you feel like you've received the go ahead and that it's okay from the people around you or from your manager, from your boss, from the people, who are really watching and paying attention. Once you feel like they say it's okay, then you're like, okay, I can start sharing and I can start writing. And then you might have some imposter syndrome because you're going to start, doubting yourself and triple thinking, like, is this what I want to say? So I think really one of the biggest setbacks is an environment or a culture where people haven't been sharing and that's not the norm and they're not seeing it demonstrated. And so there's a lot of confusion. I'm not sure if confusion is really necessarily the best word. It's just there's a lack of clarity on what it can look like to share on LinkedIn, because either you automatically fall into this pool of, okay, they're sharing, so they must be looking for a new role. Maybe they want to leave, or you're sharing. And so like, that must mean that you love this company, you love this organization, you align with every single thing that you say. And maybe they're like, well, I'm not looking for a new role, but I'm also not like, rah rah, I 100% love everything that my company does, because I think that's a little bit unrealistic because we're people
Yeah.
and we have likes and dislikes and we all see things differently. So we kind of put ourselves into one of these categories and then we're like, well, then I have nothing to share and no one else is sharing. So I think really one of the biggest setbacks is not having an example to follow. And I don't know if you would agree with that, or do you think imposter syndrome is really the first thing? What would you say is the first thing that you've come across when people want to
Yeah.
get started but they don't?
Yeah, so it's several of those things. Like one, I love the point you just made. Like, if an employee is not seeing their manager or their executive team posting content, they're going to be nervous about posting, right? So just like one tip in general, if you're starting a program like this, if you are in the C-suite or managing people, lead by example, posting your own content. That's going to disarm so many fears and apprehensions. It's going to take that away, from the rest of your employees. That's a huge hurdle to overcome. The imposter syndrome is absolutely very real. Just in terms of like people feel like they're not qualified enough to post content on LinkedIn, right? They feel like they're not enough of an expert, or they're not quite ready yet. And like I dealt with that firsthand when I first started posting content 7-8 years ago. I posted, more personal content. I posted, funny stuff because even though I had 15 years of experience in fundraising, marketing, digital, like all the things, I felt like I wasn't qualified to talk about anything, business related, because anything that I would say had already been said 100 times by people who were way smarter than me. But what I've learned is we all have our own individual um, uh, takes, our own perspective on those topics, and that's what makes our content unique. And it's just like building a muscle, right? You've got to start putting in the reps. The more you start posting, the more confident you get, the better you're going to feel about it. But just getting started is the hardest part. But I would
Yeah,
also go ahead.
I was trying to say I wanted to go like one level, one layer deeper, because I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. But I think too, people say to themselves, even though I have the experience, like everyone's already said it, or maybe they feel like I don't have the experience, so I don't know what to say, or like no one needs to hear it come from me, right? But I think if we really go one layer deeper, the real reason that they're saying that is because there's a fear of being called out and be proved wrong. And that's almost worse. Where if you're like, I do have 15 years of experience and I did share something on LinkedIn, and then someone was like, well, that's not the way it is, or I see it differently, or like you're wrong. And then all of a sudden we're like, who am I? Like, who did I think I was to share this? Because now I've somehow been like called out, and then you feel like you're a fraud, which I know that comes back to the imposter syndrome, but it's really, it's the fear of being seen. Because as soon as you put something out there, you are opening yourself up for feedback that maybe you don't want. And I think that sometimes we're like, it's just safer not to say anything, and I'm going to let my little like experience description that says I do have 15 years in marketing speak for me, instead of actually going out and talking about it, because then I'm going to have to be able to quote unquote prove what I share, and that can be really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good news here too, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, during the conversation today, is you don't have to post your own content every day in order to start building a personal brand or start contributing to your to your employer's brand. The simplest things like leaving comments on a regular basis can do great things to give you visibility, getting started, to help you start generating ideas for your own content. Not to mention the fact that the algorithm puts just tons of emphasis on comments. And again, going back to what I said earlier, people being social, treating this like a social network. Obviously, there's a benefit to posting your own content, but you can actually get started by just doing something as simple as, encouraging your team to comment on a regular basis.
Yeah, actually, kind of just like a fun tip. I just saw that LinkedIn is now going to be putting analytics on comments on your post. So, like, talk about comments being content. Like, if you can see how many people are viewing your comment, I think people are just gonna be like, it might be just another layer of fear. Like, oh my goodness, like people, they're actually watching. But that should be a good thing. That should be an encouragement, because the whole point of being in a networking platform and having a profile is to get seen. So, like, embracing the fact that, yeah, like comments can be really valuable contributions to content, where you can either support, like you said, especially if it's a coworker, support your colleagues, support what they're doing, support people in your industry, and also be able to add to the conversation. So yes, absolutely. So maybe we should, I don't know if anyone has a question, or if there's something maybe we didn't touch on, where they're like, and I don't know if if you're comfortable leaving a comment and you feel like, okay, I'm actually struggling with this and you guys didn't really cover this. We're happy to touch that. Otherwise, Anthony, if you want to go in and we can kind of talk about what would be some first steps then in order to like activate a brand ambassador program and get to kind of really build that buy-in, so that people are more excited to share and want to share and willing to share on LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. So I was trying to make sure that we're seeing. I am not a live stream producer, by the way. That is not in my skill set. So I'm kind of learning this as I go. So I'm not sure if we're seeing all the comments or questions yet. I will make sure that we get to all of them, though, before we wrap this up. But yes, to your question, Britta, there's really three or four components of any successful brand ambassador program. And the very first is making sure that your employees understand the value that's in it for them, right? Because if you have a meeting and your CEO says, "Okay, we're all going to start posting on LinkedIn. Here's our content. Just start reposting it, and it's going to be great." People aren't going to do it, right? They need to see what's in it for them. And the truth is, building your personal brand on LinkedIn is one of the greatest assets you will ever build in your career. Even if you're not looking for a job or a promotion right now, like there's always another level. There may be somewhere you want to go, someone you want to meet, somewhere you want to someone you want to work with, and building that personal brand, giving you visibility. That's going to open up opportunities to you that you probably can't even imagine right now. So I think the first step is just educating employees on how it benefits them, getting that buy-in first, and then making them understand, okay, this is a win-win situation. By you getting visibility and getting your personal brand built, we're also promoting the company, indirectly through your content. Because if you think about it, when an employee makes a post and it's an insightful post or a comment, people are going to naturally click over to your profile, right? And when they're there, they're going to see, okay, well, who is this person? Where do they work? What do they do? And that's where you're getting that sort of indirect brand impression through your employees. But they've got to understand what's in it for them.
Yeah, and I would say, like, on a really practical level, a way that you can kind of not only tell them, okay, these are like the actual benefits of having a warm, engaged professional network that really is your career safety net, but reassuring them consistently that you are okay with them sharing and that it's okay if it's what I call unscripted. So oftentimes band ambassador programs start with being like, okay, we're going to look for 5 people and then we're going to collect their stories, like their testimonials, and we're going to make some like videos and everything's going to be super curated. And then we're going to share it on our company page, but they're going to be the face of our company. Okay, so they're our brand ambassador because we asked for their story and we're putting it on our company page. So I just want to be really clear. I think both Anthony and I are clear on this, but for our audience as well, we're not talking about that kind of situation. We're talking about moving away from the company page because we know like that is like if you are still controlling the narrative, then it's still not open to that authentic, genuine connection that really does lead with transparency and lets people share from their own perspective and really from those differences. So that's why I say you want to reassure them that it's okay to share. Like we want you to share and we're open for feedback and we realize that there might be a risk in that, like something might be said, but we're not going to micromanage your content. We're not going to get angry. These are things like I would recommend that you verbally say and like tell them regularly. Like if we see you on LinkedIn at work, like we're not going to get angry at you because we asked you to share, right? It's like it's okay to be on the platform. It's okay to write content. It's okay to share about your hobbies. It's okay if you have like a side hustle. And these are things like if you're really not okay with that, then maybe do some cultural
Right.
evaluation first, right? Because I think those are things that people do hold themselves back. They're like, well, if I start sharing my photography, they're going to be wondering, maybe why didn't I get that deadline meet? Was I out on like a photography project? And it's like, we understand that you are a holistic person that you have a life outside of your job. We welcome and accept you talking about that because we also know that you're going to, through that, you're showing part of the company's value. So assure them consistently that it is okay. You're not going to micromanage. It's okay if you see them on LinkedIn in the office and you are there to support them and you welcome the open dialogue and conversation that can come from content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every single word of that was great. And I would add that, like, if you are the CEO or the marketing VP at your company, go and find a copy of your company's social media policy and read it, right, top to bottom. But read it from the perspective of, say, a new employee who may be thinking about posting on LinkedIn, and ask yourself if that policy is so filled with restrictions and legal speak that it would absolutely terrify an employee from ever posting anything, or is it like encouraging? Is it incentivizing? Is it showing examples of this is what we want you to do, and this is the type of freedom you should have? Sure, it's fine to have guide rails in there and say, these are the things we need to steer clear of, confidentiality and client, that sort of thing. But giving them a reassuring type of social media policy as opposed to one that scares them, because in my experience, I've looked at a lot of social media policies, and usually one of the first things that I see and my first pieces of advice is like, tear this thing up and rewrite it from scratch because it's terrifying people. And that can go a long way to just giving people more confidence to do all the things that Britta just said, and being authentic and creating their own original content.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's really the second step. So the first is, letting them know what's in it for them. Okay, like we want you to be active, and we see that it's not just about us, but there's value in you, in your career, in building out your portfolio. So go ahead, share. Then also saying like, okay, step two is we have the social media policy, we have these guidelines, and the only thing I want to add to that is I think when it comes to employer branding, they're like, okay, these are our like key values, like our core values, and they're like 5 words, right? So like you can write about that, and then you're like, okay, like I don't know what that practically looks like. So give an example of what would be a great post, and then give an example of maybe what would be not a great post or what you wouldn't want to see. Because I think it helps if you don't post about this, you still get questioned. You're stuck wondering, well, is this okay? Can I publish this? And if you only do things that you are okay to publish, then you're still wondering like, oh, I don't know if this isn't okay. So always provide an example of both. And the best ultimate thing you could do would be have actual leaders, actual executives, managers publishing and writing their own content, because then if they're doing it, you can look to them, and it can be not only an encouragement but like actual practical example of like, okay, this is what I can write about, they're writing about that, okay, I know I can do something similar, not copying and pasting, but it's just a perfect template of what's allowed and accepted and welcome.
Yeah, definitely. There's people have always had this question of like, what is truly appropriate content for LinkedIn, right? What's appropriate, what's not. And if you're just listening to me now as an employee and you're trying to figure out, the answer to that question, uh, just a couple of points. Like one, don't post about politics and divisive issues, right? Common sense. Stay away from, obviously anything confidential that's going to get you in trouble with, your clients or something like that. Um, don't post content that conflicts with the core values of your employer, right? I mean, you should know the culture. You should know, especially if you've been around for a while, what that looks like. And at the end of the day, it's common sense, really, if you avoid those issues. But again, if you've got a social media policy, be sure you're familiar with it. And if you're ever in doubt, especially once a program is like this is in place, don't hesitate to go to your manager and say, "Hey, I've got this idea for a post. I want to make sure you're good with it." That's really all it takes to stay out of LinkedIn jail, if you will, when it comes to posting the right or wrong content.
Yeah, I think kind of a benchmark you could use, because LinkedIn, it is an ongoing live networking event. So I don't know if you've ever been to a networking event, or even if you were to just imagine going to one for the first time, would you tell like to someone you are just meeting, would you say this to them? So like, would you say who you're voting for like the very first time you meet someone? Probably not. So you're probably like, okay, we're going to kind of avoid when you say politics, right? It's like, if it's not something you're willing to dive into in a conversation on the very first point of reference with that person, then maybe save it for later, because you can always take conversations into the DMs. You could always have a coffee chat. But then again, also knowing what are the core values of companies, because some companies are very vocal about certain issues. And so if they're sharing about it, or there is that kind of dialogue happening internally, you could just ask someone. It's like, hey, I love this conversation that we had, or I love this thing that you shared on the internet. Is it okay if I share, my opinion or my experience or my takeaway from this one thing? And they might actually like that, because it could be a perfect opportunity for potential candidates to come across that content and automatically self-qualify themselves. Because there's nothing worse than walking into an environment where you thought it was A and it's actually Z, right? Like there's times when like it can be helpful to share key aspects that we can really share through content that go back to those core values. And so it's always just, if you're in doubt, don't be afraid to ask, especially if you are trying to get your employees on board. Then encourage them to come with you with your questions, and be open to being a little bit risky on the vulnerable side of sharing stories. Because if it truly is something that you are about as an organization, then you want people to be able to recognize and see themselves in that, to be able to take the next step or continue on and go their own way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess the next step we could talk about is like, okay, what does a training program look like, right? What does this actually encompass? And the first thing you want to make sure is you keep it really, really simple. Okay. If you make it overwhelming, people aren't going to participate. So make it simple. And I'll share like kind of how I work with my clients, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective as well, Britta. But the first thing you need to do, obviously, is provide them with training, right? Explaining what a personal brand is, again, the benefit to them, um, teach them how to go about creating content, the type of content, just all the nuts and bolts. But one thing that I've learned is like a single training or training every couple months is not enough, right? You need to be able to train them on a particular topic and then provide ongoing support for them, in the weeks between these monthly trainings where you're diving deeper into these topics. So typically what I do is I'll have a kickoff training. There will be a dedicated Slack channel or a dedicated something on Microsoft Teams where I'm giving prompts, I'm giving reminders during the week, I'm giving, motivation, that type of thing, so that they can take what they learn and then apply it in just a matter of, spending a few minutes every day. Because without that ongoing support, typically, the participation is just going to fall off. And then the other thing there is offering like office hours, once a week, once every 2 weeks. Whoever's conducting the training, have a Zoom session where you can get on and ask questions, get feedback on your post, get feedback on your profile, because that's going to help again keep people moving. Whether it's someone in your team internally, right? Maybe it's the head of social media that's in charge of this, or whether it's hiring someone like you or me, right, to actually come into your organization and actually do the heavy lifting, guide everyone through the process. But it has to be simple, and it has to be a lot more than just a single training every once in a while.
Yeah, it's funny because quite a few people have asked if there's just like a course they can buy, like a passive course. And I don't know if you, I'm sure, imagine you take the same approach, Anthony, because I know we just are so aligned in how we think. But the passive course doesn't give you that hands-on experience that's really needed when it comes to sharing on LinkedIn. Because, like as we mentioned, and you might, some of our listeners right now be feeling it like, okay, yeah, but like, how do I get started? And it's like, yeah, you might watch a course and then go off and write something and hit publish. But then again, it's just like you said, the motivation just falls. And then there's it's hard to really see that sharing on LinkedIn is a marathon. You're in it for the long haul. It's even more than a marathon. I don't even know what you could compare it to, because what you are is you're you're laying the building blocks for your career, and you're becoming that resource. You're becoming that person of trust. And we're not saying that just because you share means that you're automatically going to get headhunted or that you're going to all of a sudden want to move jobs. But you never know what could happen, especially right now in this economy. Like, you might, unfortunately, unexpectedly lose your job, and they didn't foresee that. You didn't foresee that. And then you might be sitting there being like, man, I wish I had started sharing on LinkedIn. Why didn't I? Right. And you had all this fear. So even when you can't see the immediate results, like trusting the process and knowing like it's not one post by itself. So watching one course or participating in one training in one workshop, yeah, like you're going to learn a lot. You'll have lots of takeaways, but then the actual most difficult part is implementation, which is why the follow-up is so important. So whether that's through Slack channel, that's what I love to use, or if it's just being able to have access through email and then being there regularly, holding you accountable. Because like I know accountability, we're like, oh yeah, accountability, whatever. It's like, I promise you, if you say you're going to start sharing on LinkedIn, you probably will stop after like 2 weeks or a month, because you're gonna get frustrated. And I think another key thing that we hadn't touched on earlier is really setting the expectation. Like, brand ambassadors doesn't mean you need to be a LinkedIn influencer. Sharing on LinkedIn doesn't mean you have to post 7 days a week. I see Jeff said he tries to post about 3 times a week. Like, that's great. And 3 is a lot. Like, if you are a full-time employee, sharing 3 times a week could be a lot for you. So like, start with what's possible. Do 1, And then think again of the long-term goal. You're building out an active portfolio that positions you as someone who has experience in a specific area, and you can be contacted and you're open to talking about your experience. You don't have to be a content creator. You're not aiming for like a million views on the first post. Okay, like that might happen at some point. You might have a post that goes viral, but like that's not the goal. So like have your goal, set the expectation, and then be open to being held accountable. So yeah, doing the training, whether that's in one day or through like a series, like over a 6 week process or however you structure that, and then having the follow up, and like don't think it's annoying that you have Anthony or me coming in and being like, hey, what about this, or you could write about this, or we'd love to review this. I mean, I've had clients even ask me to review their comments because there's so much doubt and so much fear around what they're putting out. So accepting that it is a learning, like it's a growth journey, and that's just part of the process. And that's why it's so helpful having someone come alongside of you for a period of time.
Yep. Uh, Pretty much every creator I know, including myself, it's so easy to get discouraged and give up when you start posting content, especially if you've had training and you're excited, like, yeah, I'm going to go build a personal brand, and you make a post and you get like one like, and that's normal. Like, expect that when you first start out. Okay. It takes a while, like she said, to build a brand. Consistency is everything on LinkedIn. So don't give up. The other thing that I would say there is, don't overthink the content. And when I typically start training organizations, the first tip that I give them when it comes to, okay, what's your content plan starting out? What might that look like? I call it the Monday, Wednesday, Friday plan. So on Monday, reshare a post from your company page, something recent, right? And don't just hit repost and be done, but like add your perspective, like share why you thought that was interesting. If you're posting, resharing a job, maybe you know someone in that department, you've worked in that department, like share something personal that shows your perspective. On Wednesday, post one original piece of content, and we can get into what that looks like later, but content that shows your personality, content that shows types of projects you're working on, lessons that you've learned in your career. There's a lot that you can go into there. And then on Friday, reshare a post from just someone in your network, right? It could be someone who you really admire, who puts out great content. It could be a piece of content related to maybe even something you aspire to be, down the road, a job that you want to have. One, it could be from anyone in your network. Again, add your perspective to it. So at the end of that week, you've reshared two posts, you've made one on your own, and that's not going to make you a thought leader over the long term if that's all you do, but it's a great way to get started. It's a great way to start putting in the reps without getting overwhelmed. And so that's one simple strategy you can take if you're just trying to get started.
Yeah, and I think the real key thing is always reposting with your own thoughts, because, and you might notice this too, when you come across someone's profile and you are genuinely interested in what you see and you want to see what they're sharing, if they only have reposts, but there's never their own thoughts to it, like it's really hard to understand why they shared that. Like you're like, is that a friend? Is that a coworker? Was that a project they participated? Like why, like, do they volunteer with this organization? Like, why are they sharing this? And if you don't know why, you can't interact. So just think of that and how that's reflecting your own engagement and conversation opportunity. So it's so simple. Like Anthony just laid out the most simple way to get started, just by saying why. Right? If you do that on Mondays and on Fridays, like it's more than the person who's just reposting. So it's such a small action that can actually make a big difference in conversation and connection.
Yep, no doubt. And once you take that next step, like once you get more comfortable posting, start to think about, okay, what are 3 or 4 content pillars that you want to base your strategy and your personal brand around, right? Figure out what those buckets look like. And I mean, go in, take advantage of AI tools like ChatGPT to go in and say, hey, this is my personal brand goal. This is what I do in my job. These are the topics I think I want to talk about, and let it help you generate ideas. I mean, I think anyone that's not doing that is kind of doing themselves a disservice And we could go into a whole separate topic about AI content creation, but use it to generate ideas for sure. Sometimes even using it to help you write a first draft. But don't be that person who has Chat GPT write a post and you copy and paste it because everyone in the world is going to know it, right? That stuff is becoming very, very easy to spot. So start out using it for idea generation, and that will really help kind of get the creative the creativity going when you're thinking about what to post.
Yeah, another thing you can do as well is set a Google alert. So based on your industry, you could choose like very specific ideas and keywords. And then if you get that Google alert, you can choose if you want it daily or weekly. But then you can also see like what are other people publishing about this topic. And then you can pull from that, and then you have the idea, but then you're adding to it and saying why you agree or why you disagree or your own experience with that. So it can be another way to just kind of have it be like pop in your inbox. You don't have to do the search, and you're reminded. And then you're like, okay, can I pull from this? Maybe not. I'll be honest. I have a Google alert for LinkedIn, and it's not always great. But I can see what other people like. If this is being published and being pushed out, and I'm receiving a Google alert on it, I know that this is part of a conversation. So pay attention to it.
Definitely. Yeah, I've used Google Alerts. I actually just started using, I'm not sure if you've heard, Chat GPT has like tasks you can give it, like recurring tasks. So every day at 7 a.m., I tell it to go out and, find 10 of the most recent topics related to LinkedIn, personal branding, and give me ideas for posts from it. Like it's just, I wake up and the ideas are right there based on that research.
That's
And
amazing. I haven't heard of that. That's a like super gold nugget here.
it
That's
just rolled out like a week or so ago. It's very cool.
Right. Yeah, I saw something about like doing a task in ChatGPT for creating Canva graphics, and I was like, okay, hold on. I was like that. I was like, that's just like one step. I'm not quite ready to have ChatGPT. I know it can like generate graphics, but not connected to Canva. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Lot
gotta sort it out.
Lots of really cool things that it can do for sure. The other thing that I would, recommend is, like, when you're trying to build a routine where you're doing this on a regular basis, block out 15, 20 minutes on your calendar every day, and it's just a reminder to engage on LinkedIn, whether that's posting, whether that's commenting, whatever that looks like. But hold yourself accountable by putting that recurring meeting on your calendar, or setting up an alarm on your phone, whatever it takes. But once you start doing that again, it gets you into a routine. And just like anything else, if you want to be successful and losing weight or working out, you've got to build that routine. You've got to build that muscle. And the exact same thing is true when it comes to engaging on LinkedIn. So find a way to hold yourself accountable and be consistent.
Yeah, for the person who is listening right now or on the replay, and maybe they're in a situation where they want to be using LinkedIn, but they really can't for various reasons. Maybe you are being micromanaged and they are watching your activity, and that is frustrating to you. You could definitely repost content that's relevant to your industry. um, maybe post it on the weekend, even though like you can schedule posts on LinkedIn, like just click on that little clock and leverage that. So, you could be in a meeting and a post goes out and it's like proof that you're not on the platform. Obviously, I'm not telling you to do that, but use the schedule, like find the posts, save them, and then you can schedule them out to just optimize your time. So it's not coming from yourself. If you're in a position where you can't do that yet, there's a lot of power from reposting with your own thoughts and adding to, especially if it's industry related. And then if you're like, well, I can't even comment, like I wish I could go in and engage and connect with these people, you can do a lot by having an optimized profile that's updated and being willing to connect with people and message them. So you could grow a really warm network just having conversations in the DMs that no one is going to see. No manager or boss or any of my colleague is going to see your DMs, but you are actively engaging and talking with people that you want to connect with. So if you do set that timer and you're like if you're just thinking like I can't share content and I can't comment and I am being micromanaged and people are watching, there's still a lot that you can do behind the scenes that can help you position yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about, because you're sharing industry content and you're having conversations. So don't be discouraged. Like there's ways around it. And if you have questions, like message Anthony or me after this, just pop in our DMs and we're happy to help you.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up because what you're talking about is like building relationships, right? And my personal opinion is when you go to LinkedIn every day, you should go there not so much with the mindset of this is what I'm going to post, but I'm here to build relationships. I'm here to build my network. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And your point about taking conversations into the DMs, a lot of people are terrified of doing that. Most people are receptive to a real conversational DM. What they hate is the pitch slaps, right? You connect and you immediately are trying to sell them. But the folks listening to this, employees, you're trying to, grow your skill set, connect with like-minded people, connect with people that you may want to potentially even work for one day. Have those conversations. Something as simple as sending someone a DM after you connect and complimenting their content. Say, I really enjoy your post today about XYZ. Things like that are just easy conversation starters. That can open doors to opportunities again that you may not even imagine right now. This live stream that we're on right now, Britta and I talking came as a result of seeing each other's content. I think I sent her a DM and just said, hey, we should have a call sometime. During the call, we decided, hey, we should do a live stream. It opened up this opportunity, all from just a simple message. So come to the platform with that mindset of building relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's like a great note to kind of end on, unless someone has a question, if they want to drop it in here. I know Chang Lee, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She asked, is an employee reposting or commenting better for reach? So I'm not quite sure what she means. A repost is always going to perform less than the original post. And if you repost without your own thoughts, then all engagement goes directly to the original post. So that could help the original post. If you add your own thoughts, then all the engagement goes to the person who is reposting it, so to the individual. Commenting can definitely help you get in front of people that might not see your content. So if you are intentionally trying to become more visible, then I would say comment, because that's going to help you go further because you're in control of your activity, whereas you can't control the algorithm and you can't control the post. And so it's, you can't say. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, commenting again, kind of like we talked about, even if the idea right now of posting content or even reposting is terrifying to you, just go in and when you get that alert or that recurring reminder every day, go in and leave 5 comments on LinkedIn and get out. You're done. Like if you do that every day, you'll be amazed at how many profile views you get, how many inbound connection requests you get, and just make sure those comments are meaningful. It's not just congratulations or great post. Like add your perspective. A sentence or two is really all that it takes. You don't need to write a novel. But also to Britta's point, when you make a comment on someone's post, especially if it's a good comment, LinkedIn will surface that to people outside of your network. So again, just that idea of getting more eyeballs to your profile. There's just so many benefits of leaving comments, and the fact that they now have a dashboard showing you how many views you're getting from your comments just says it all. So definitely lean into that.
Yeah, we had another question come in here. Romario, is there any algorithm like other social media to follow on LinkedIn for posts? Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, so the algorithm is always changing. And right now, a lot of people are complaining about the huge drop in reach. And I do wonder if it's not because of this new comment view algorithm thing that they're updating, analytics that they're updating. But essentially, there's still a basis that the initial engagement around your post makes a difference. So when your post goes out, you want to be able to be active and respond to comments as they go out. It is helpful if you can kind of engage a little bit around that time. We're not saying there's a lot of people who just they honestly admit that they spend 5 hours on the platform, and a lot of people are part of engagement pods that they're really open about it. So Just be mindful of those things and don't get discouraged if you're like, well, why does that person have 100 likes and I only have 2? Okay, because you don't know everything that's going on. But when you can be active, respond to those comments, pay attention in the first hour, and little things like, yes, a reshare is going, or a comment has more value than a like or a heart. So keep that in mind. I mean, again, it's like, what's your whole goal of creating? Like, are you wanting to become an influencer and have massive reach? Or are you strategically trying to speak to people so that you can build those relationships based whether you're being a brand ambassador and you want to help recruit the right people and attract the right candidates. So you're just trying to open up conversation, or are you trying to position into a new role internally? And so you want to highlight your own experience, or are you just looking to grow a warm network? So it's really like you need to have a goal in mind and then create for that goal. But if you wanted it to go further, okay, you want to create something that's going to get reshares, or you want to create something that's going to have comments on it. So you need to lead with a question that's easy for them to respond to. There's small things like that that can help it go further.
Yeah, that's very well said. Anytime I get a question about the algorithm, my advice is know the best practices, know what platforms like uh, certain actions and so forth, but don't chase the algorithm because you'll never catch it, right? If you focus on your content, that will take care of everything else. Because at the end of the day, every network, LinkedIn included, is looking for the best content to show that to as many people as possible. That's what's keeping eyeballs on the platform, right? So if you're putting out value-based content, genuine content, that's going to that's going to take care of everything. You can't figure out what's going on behind the scenes in the algorithm. Focus on what you can control, and that is your content and your message.
Yeah, great answer. Jeff said, contributing to articles, posting and commenting, and joining and engaging in groups I have found really helped to expand your reach. Yes. Um, yeah, the one thing I would say just about articles is, if you are strapped for time, what's going to have more impact? Responding on an article that was AI generated, unless it was an article written that someone published, like a blog post, that kind of article. Because I know for a long time, the AI articles where like everyone was trying to get the top voice badge for that, but then you could lose it. And like, I personally don't read AI articles, but I would read an article that someone wrote in their own words. So yes, those are great, Jeff. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Well, if not, Britta, thank you for joining me today. This has been fantastic. I've had a great time. For those of you who have additional questions after this, don't hesitate to send me a DM, to send Britta a DM. You'll see both of our websites down here on the scroll. If you're interested in building a brand ambassador program for your organization, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. I know we would both be happy to have that conversation and see what we could do for you.
All right. Thanks so much. And thank you for hanging in here until the end and leaving your comments and questions. We really appreciate it. And we hope this was a great resource for you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Britta.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.